Just a quick note before we jump in, today's episode makes a very brief mention of rape. Please take care while listening. Have you ever been really close to someone? Maybe you have a sister or a brother who is also your dearest confidant and friend? Or is there a best friend or partner whose sentences you finish? Or someone with whom you can communicate with a mere twitch of the eyebrow? Have you ever had a relationship where you feel you are two halves of the same person? Or maybe you're a twin and you know what it's like to share absolutely everything. But how much closeness is too much closeness? Welcome to Strange and Unexplained with me, Daisy Egan. I have a sister whom I love dearly and with whom I am close. But I know that if we were too close, we might end up killing each other. Recently, I witnessed a set of twin women in their 70s or 80s over the course of a quiet meal. Correction, I was having a quiet meal. These two women came in exclaiming about everything at an 11 right away. About a half hour and a couple of glasses of champagne later, the sisters were screaming at each other about wounds that sounded about as old as they were. Wrongs they had done to each other over the decades, perceived disrespect and mistreatment. It was quite a show. And just as I was about to suggest to them that their family grievances were perhaps not appropriate for the rest of us to be hearing about, the women abruptly stopped and headed to a bar across the lobby as one of them pleasantly announced, "Ooh, I haven't had a martini in ages," as though they hadn't been screaming at each other for the past half hour. All night, I wondered what the rest of their evening looked like. Did they scream each other to sleep? Honestly, I half expected an ambulance to pull up in the middle of the night, hauling one or both of them away in either 4-point restraints or body bags. When I was a kid, I thought it would be so cool to have a twin and dress alike and fool people about which one of us was which. There are so many glamorous and fun depictions of twins out there, like in Sweet Valley High, for example. You know, the series of YA books by Francine Pascal about glamorous teen twins Jessica and Elizabeth who are identical, rich, hot blonde sisters with wildly different personalities. Elizabeth is a sweet, wholesome, all-American girl, while Jessica is her toxic, narcissistic, sociopathic sister, hell-bent on ruining lives and sleeping with Elizabeth's boyfriends. Actually, now that I mention it, it really doesn't seem all that glamorous after all. And then there are those shining twins looking pale and freaky in that hotel hallway. And those Doublemint twins who always seem so unreasonably obsessed with fresh breath. I've always been fascinated by twins. I had a set of twin friends when I was a teenager, and I was both jealous of their closeness and relieved I didn't have to share every single thing with my own sister. By default, these two had the same friends, which in retrospect seems unfair. How likely is it that siblings have the same enough personality that they'd have all the same friends? I wonder if one of them ever felt like their friends weren't really their friends, but really their sister's friends, or vice versa. Like, was one of them more dominant and so got to sort of choose for the both of them how their social lives worked? I wonder how that shapes a life. Gloria and Aubrey Gibbons met in their home country of Barbados, where they worked at the same airport. Gloria as a switchboard operator and Aubrey a meteorological assistant. They soon married and conceived their first child. Sadly, that child, whom they named Frank, died in infancy. Still, the couple went on to have 2 more children, Greta and David, and eventually the little family decided to leave Barbados. Aubrey set out for England in 1960, where he stayed with a relative in Coventry. He set his sights on the Royal Air Force and soon qualified to be a staff technician. Once Aubrey was settled in his position, Gloria came to join him a few months later with the kids, and they began their new chapter in the continental UK. During the late 1950s and early 60s in England, the Windrush generation came about when an influx of Caribbean people migrated to the UK to fill gaps in the labor force. Post-World War II, Britain had a manpower problem after the nation suffered so many losses during the conflict. Rather than lose the ability to maintain its infrastructure, the government invited mass immigration to alleviate the workforce problem, seeking new citizens from mainland Europe. An unexpected side effect of the effort was the rise in citizens from the former countries of the British Empire and Commonwealth, such as the Caribbean, arriving to seek work. The Ministry of Labor at the time was actually opposed to recruiting labor from the Caribbean and tried to argue that the, quote, previously advertised shortages no longer existed. Still, the British Nationality Act of 1948 gave UK citizenship to all people living in their territories and colonies, so many West Indians, attracted by better job prospects, exercised their right and found their way to the British Isles to start over, and the Gibbons were among them. Once in the Royal Air Force, Aubrey was deployed to Yemen, and the Gibbons family was relocated. It was in Yemen, at a military hospital, that Gloria gave birth to identical twin daughters June Allison and Jennifer Lorraine Gibbons. June was born at 8 a.m. on April 11, 1963, and Jennifer was born 10 minutes later. Gloria said that her twin girls always wanted to do everything together. She said they even nursed at the same time, which is really not that uncommon and frankly a great time saver. Otherwise, you're basically just a milk machine 24/7. The family fondly referred to the new babies as the twinnies. By age 3, though they were thriving physically, it began to be evident that the twinnies were not hitting all their speech milestones. The toddlers could only put together sentences of about 2 or 3 words, and while children may certainly develop at different paces, it was agreed that though they might not have been wildly behind, it did represent a developmental delay, even for 1966. In the 60s, there were fewer layperson references to this type of thing, but nowadays, milestone checklists like the one from speechandlanguagekids.com suggest that by age 3, a 3-year-old's speech should be understood at least 50% of the time, and that, quote, a 3-year-old should be speaking in sentences that are, on average, about 3 words long. Some should be shorter, and some should be a bit longer than 3 words as well, end quote. The Gibbons knew from having seen their other children develop that the twins were progressing differently. The main thing that they noticed was that the twins would only talk to one another, and the speech that they heard passing between the girls was mostly unintelligible. In a piece in allthat'sinteresting.com, the twins' father is quoted as saying about the girls, quote, in the home, they'd talk, make sounds and all that, but we knew that they weren't quite like, normal children, talking readily, end quote. When the twins were 4 years old in 1967, their baby sister Rosie was born. The twins shared a bedroom with the new baby, and little Rosie became, for a time, the only person in the family that June and Jennifer would speak to besides each other. People outside the Gibbons household noticed the delay in the twins' speech, too. Early teachers noted the lack of speech in their school report cards and noticed that, according to a piece in The Guardian from 2007, quote, June and Jennifer weren't speaking, although they were reading and writing fluently, yet their parents would hear them chattering endlessly to each other while playing with their dolls. It was as if they had distorted their speech into a secret code only they could understand. Surely Aubrey and Gloria comforted themselves. Their twins would grow out of it, end quote. Strangers, Smalls is back. You all know I don't have a cat, and also I'm not allowed to fantasize about finding stray kittens because that is bad. But if I did have a cat, or I found some stray kittens, which would be bad, I would definitely feed them Smalls cat food, because Smalls is good. Smalls cat food is protein-packed recipes made with preservative-free ingredients you'd find in your fridge, and it's delivered right to your door. That's why Cats.com named Smalls their best overall cat food. Smalls was started back in 2017 by a couple of guys home cooking cat food in small batches for their friends. A few short years later, they've served millions of meals to cats across the U.S. Plus, Smalls works with the Humane World for Animals. Through the Humane World for Animals, they've donated over $1 million worth of food to help cats, and they even give you a chance to donate at checkout, whether you donate $5 for flea and tick medications or $7 for vaccines. Smalls customer Jennifer M. says after every feeding, he gets this burst of energy and starts running around the house, and his fur is softer and more vibrant with higher contrast. Honestly, I wouldn't recommend anything else. After switching to Smalls, 88% of cat owners reported overall health improvements. That's a big deal. The team at Smalls is so confident your cat will love their product that you can try it risk-free. That means they will refund you if your cat won't eat their food. What are you waiting for? Give your cat the food they deserve. For a limited time, because you're a Strange and Unexplained listener, get 60% off your first order plus free shipping when you head to smalls.com/strange. One last time, that's 60% off your first order plus free shipping when you head to smalls.com/strange. The family soon relocated back to England before finally settling in Wales. Maybe it was because of the frequent moves, or maybe it was just the inborn closeness of the twins, but June and Jennifer didn't grow out of it and continued to be inseparable and to virtually only communicate with one another. Even little Rosie was eventually moved to another room, and the twins stopped speaking to her as well. Even if they had spoken to anyone else, the language June and Jennifer spoke to one another was a challenge for other people to understand, to put it mildly, even for their parents. But both girls did have a significant speech impediment. They both had a lateral lisp, but it was much more than that. To give you a sense of it, here's a clip of June later in her life.
What are you saying? What about you saying? Are we just saying, you can't hear us now, you can't hear us never. And we couldn't be bothered to repeat ourselves, we didn't speak. We left it. To do a habit of not speaking.
From what I can understand, what June is saying is that because people couldn't understand what they were saying to begin with, they basically just stopped speaking to anyone but each other. By age 11, they would only respond to family members in monosyllabic words. When the family moved to Wales in 1974, June and Jennifer, now 11, attended Haverfordwest County Secondary School, where, in all their time there, they made only one friend, a young girl named Diane Williams. When Diane's mother was asked about her early impressions of the twins some years later for a piece in The New Yorker, she described June and Jennifer as, quote, beautifully dressed, always clean and tidy, end quote. Well, they had that going for them. But, stranger, this seems to be the one bright spot in what otherwise was a pretty bleak landscape for the girls. June and Jennifer and their siblings were the only black children in the Welsh village where they lived and went to school. Of course, they all experienced racism and bullying. And because the twins were thought of as strange just for being twins and for their speech issues, they were further ostracized. Things for June and Jennifer were bad enough that school administrators would dismiss them from school early each afternoon so that they could avoid any bullies or tormentors that might be waiting for them. Marjorie Wallace's 1987 book, The Silent Twins, reports the girls were tormented while they were in school, sometimes having their heads stuck into toilets. This profound isolation had a traumatic effect. Not surprisingly, the bullying is said to have pushed them closer together, as they were, quote, forced to cling even more tightly to the safe world of each other, to strengthen the walls of their twinship and to withdraw behind them. They stopped trying to communicate with outsiders and, even within the family, became more isolated, end quote. The girls were living a life in which they were not understood and in which they were outsiders in every possible way. They leaned more heavily into each other and became even more entrenched in their deeply codependent existence. Idioglossia, according to Merriam-Webster, is defined as, quote, a condition in which words are so poorly articulated that speech is either unintelligible or appears to be a made-up language, end quote. But actually, it's more complicated than that. The word comes from the ancient Greek idios for own, personal, or distinct, and glossa for tongue. Idioglossia refers to a language that is invented and spoken by only one or two people. The term is often used when referring to private languages of young children, especially twins. Though I had a secret language with both a best friend and my own father, we still use it to this day. Twin languages are also commonly known by the term cryptophagia, which differs slightly from idioglossia in that it also includes mirrored actions like twin walk, where twins walk alike and exhibit other identical mannerisms, making it difficult to distinguish between them. You know, like the identical cousins on the Patty Duke show. It is also worth noting that kids who are exposed to multiple languages from birth are a demographic that is inclined to create idioglossias. So, like maybe kids born in Yemen but conceived in England to Caribbean parents who moved to Wales, for example? Also, not for nothing, but have you ever heard Welsh?
Wedyn mi eisiau'r ysgol gynradd yno pan oedden ni'n tua 6 oed. Ac mi rhaid mi ddysgu Saesneg oherwydd...
Have you ever heard English in Welsh?
Let's go back to that night then. Banksy was supposed to be in Talbot, yeah? And you and all the boys were out. Was I out? No, exactly, because I was over the steelworks in my spray can.
Now imagine your parents are from Barbados. You were born in Yemen, and then you moved to Wales while you were still learning to speak. You'd probably be pretty hard to understand too. Usually, these special invented languages will disappear when children are young, as a language commonly spoken in their environment takes hold and becomes the predominant language. Jennifer and June's idioglossia has frequently been characterized as an example of cryptophagia, but June Gibbons' statement to the BBC and other statements she has made as an adult dispute this, indicating that the twin language she spoke with her sister was a result of a shared speech impediment. According to June, the twins were simply speaking English the whole time, but their speech was mistaken for an invented language due to the severity of their difficulties. In a BBC piece on the twins in 2023, June said no one could understand what they were saying. Quote, "We had to point at things we wanted. When our mother asked us what we wanted for tea or whatever, she thought we were talking a different language." End quote. Where cryptophagia and idioglossia is usually left behind in early childhood, this difficulty talking and being understood continued for June and Jennifer as the girls got older. In school, in Yorkshire, yet another English dialect, June says, quote, "They thought we were talking a different language. We could understand what we were saying, but I just don't think they knew what we were saying at all." End quote. In 1976, 2 years after the girls had started secondary school, a medic named Dr. John Reese visited the school to give students the tuberculosis vaccine. You know, they vaccinated them against an insidious and contagious, but ultimately controllable disease. At school. For free. As part of an important public health program to keep the larger community safe from an illness in a coordinated effort to eradicate a disease that needlessly killed so many. Incidentally, TB death rates dropped from 60 per 100,000 before the vaccine program to 2 per 100,000 after. Anyway, when giving the twins their shots, Reese noted the girls' odd affect and linguistic limitations and referred them to a child psychologist named Evan Davies. Dr. Davies attempted to interview the twins, but they wouldn't speak to him. Shocker. Also, Davies was unable to tell the girls apart, so he referred them to the chief speech therapist at Haverfordwest's Withy-Bush Hospital, Anne Traherne. June and Jennifer were transferred to Eastgate Center for Special Education in Pembroke and began treatment with Traherne for elective mutism in February of 1977. Some sources report that this treatment included a minor surgery for their tongue tie called a frenotomy, in which the frenulum, the small membrane connecting the tongue to the base of the mouth, is snipped. My son had this procedure when he was a newborn. I had to leave the room. Usually, the procedure is performed on infants with tongue tie. The treatment is somewhat controversial. Some linguists and lactation specialists claims the procedure helps prevent breastfeeding problems and speech impediments. If you try to speak without being able to move your tongue, you can probably hear the difference. But others believe it made no discernible improvement. What doesn't make sense to me is if they were being treated for elective mutism, what on earth would their frenulums have had to do with it? Which was it, a speech impediment or a psychological one? Either way, the procedure did not solve the problem because, of course, it didn't. For what it's worth, the surgery was performed over the objections of Dr. Reese and Anne Traherne. Probably because the surgery didn't work, Traherne began to believe that what was going on with the twins was more than what initially met the eye. strangers, the holidays are coming, and if you're like me, you're boycotting 80 million different companies. It's gonna make gift giving a little harder, but not to worry. You can give the gift of luxury, space-age sheets without the luxury price tag or the guilt with Miracle Made sheets. I love my Miracle Made sheets. They keep me and my husband at the perfect temperature all night long, so we can both sleep comfortably through the night, and I don't have to wake up in a puddle of my own sweat. Miracle Made sheets are crafted with NASA-inspired silver-infused fabric that helps regulate your body temperature. Hot sleeper, cold sleeper, doesn't matter. These sheets help keep you in the comfort zone all night long. Plus, they stay cleaner longer. Thanks to their antibacterial silver technology, Miracle Made sheets stay cleaner and fresher up to 3 times longer than regular sheets. That means fewer odors, fewer wash cycles, and way less laundry. And who doesn't love the gift of doing less laundry? Upgrade your sleep or give the gift of better rest. Go to trymiracle.com/strange to try Miracle Made sheets today. You'll save over 40%, and when you use promo code STRANGE, you'll get an extra 20% off, plus a free 3-piece towel set. They make an amazing gift, and with a 30-day money-back guarantee, there's no risk. That's trymiracle.com/strange, code STRANGE at checkout. Thanks to Miracle Made for sponsoring this episode. In 2007, The Guardian reported, quote, Anne Traherne, an expert on elective mutes, became convinced a game was going on, that by secret eye signals, Jennifer was stopping June speaking, controlling her as if she were a robot. The twins spooked her colleagues, moving extremely slowly in perfect time. They seemed inhuman, like zombies, drinking cups of tea or taking off their coats in eerie unity. A head teacher even called Jennifer evil, end quote. Ah, yes, tea-drinking, coat-wearing evil zombies. This perception of creepiness was not new. Tim Thomas, the school psychologist at Haverford-West, also described the girls' movement as robotic and identical, saying, quote, they'd sit in front of you, and if one moved, the other moved in exactly the same way. Movement was robotic, almost, and there was no eye contact between them, so I have absolutely no idea how they were able to do it, end quote. But despite their synchronicity, not all was harmonious between the sisters. Thomas witnessed a fight between the sisters where Jennifer punched June in the chest repeatedly, saying, you are Jennifer, not June. June, for her part, just stood there saying, I am June, I'm not you. According to June on the BBC Radio Wales podcast about the sisters, Jennifer wanted them to be the same and didn't like their differences. Michael John, a teacher at Haverford-West, also reported that he got bad vibes from Jennifer. He had some pretty definitive things to say about it to Marjorie Wallace in her book The Silent Twins. Quote, I've had 6,000 children go through my hands in 30 years, and I've encountered only 4 I felt were evil. One was a boy who raped the daughter of a best friend. Another eventually shot a boy. A third was found guilty of rape and assault. The 4th was Jennifer. I felt that June should not be allowed to mix with her or come under her influence. The bad one would not have been so bad had she not been able to draw strength from her twin, and the other would have been normal, end quote. In The Silent Twins, Wallace mentions that the headmaster at the girls' school in Devon also said the girls would, quote, walk in a kind of goose step, walking 10 yards one behind the other very slowly in some strange, stately procession, end quote. He got in his car to follow them to see how long they kept that up. Apparently, it was all the way home. While I would like to take a more neutral or even apathetic view on what was happening with the twins, there are such a multitude of sources that suggest that little Jennifer was the bad actor and that June was under her coercive control that it is difficult not to lend the idea some credence. In spite of the efforts of Traherne and her staff during the time that they worked with the girls, Jennifer and June wouldn't speak to the speech therapist. Still, she was able to record the girls speaking to each other, and it was she who worked out that their secret language was actually a polyglot mixture of Barbadian slang and English spoken very quickly. The staff at Eastgate wasn't getting very far in their treatment of the girls, and so to try a different approach, it was proposed that the girls, now 14, be separated. Maybe if they weren't together, the girls could be separately educated and their individual needs could be more adequately met. Maybe they would be able to form their own distinct identities, which would help them learn to speak and be understood outside of their little self-imposed unit. It was decided that June would stay at Eastgate in Pembroke, and Jennifer would be sent 30 miles away to St. David's adolescent unit. Except, St. David's, it seems, previously operated under the following names: United Counties Lunatic Asylum, Joint Counties Lunatic Asylum, and Joint Counties Mental Hospital. So, were they sending Jennifer to a separate facility to help her become independent and learn to speak? Or were they getting her away from June and sending her to a psych ward? It was, as the quotes from various staff show, common knowledge that June and Jennifer had a rocky relationship. Not only did it seem as though Jennifer was trying to control June, but the girls had been known to sometimes attack one another physically and aggressively. Some suggested that these attacks were violent enough in nature that it was like they were trying to kill each other or themselves. According to a story in the New York Post, quote, Jennifer once tried to strangle June with the cord of a radio, while June once tried to drown Jennifer after they rivaled for the attention of some boys, end quote. So perhaps distance was what the sisters needed for their safety as well as their development. And perhaps a more clinical mental health approach would benefit Jennifer. But this experiment too soon proved to be a failure. In spite of everything, the separation was found to do more harm than good. And by May of 1978, Jennifer was sent back to Eastgate to rejoin her sister. AllThat'sInteresting.com said of the separation, quote, rather than branch out, June and Jennifer Gibbons withdrew entirely into themselves and became almost catatonic. At one point during their separation, it took 2 people to get June out of bed, after which she was simply propped against a wall, her body stiff and heavy as a corpse, end quote. Almost like a puppet without its master. After being reunited, the girls spent 1 more year at Eastgate. When they turned 16, Jennifer and June left school for good. They enrolled in a public assistance program and moved back to their family home in Haverfordwest, where they directed their collective attention toward writing. For Christmas that year, they had both been gifted diaries in which they wrote extensively. This seemed to ignite a passion in both girls for storytelling, and in 1980 they pooled their welfare checks to send away for a creative writing course they could take by correspondence. And soon, June and Jennifer were writing all the time. They produced stories, poems, and novels, along with their journals, which they never stopped writing in. They wrote a novel each during this time. June wrote Pepsi Cola Addict, which Goodreads tells me is, quote, a unique and captivating story that explores the life of a teenager named Preston Wildly King, who is deeply in love with his schoolmate Peggy, but is also obsessed with Pepsi Cola. The novel is known for its vivid portrayal of a young woman trying to navigate the complexities of her life and the world around her. Written by Gibbons when she was only 16, the book is considered one of the great works of 20th century outsider literature, end quote. And Jennifer wrote Discomania. I was not able to find a review of this novella, but the description certainly sounds lurid and compelling, if a little alarming. Quote, a young woman discovers that dancers at a local discotheque are being driven to acts of insane violence, end quote. The girl's mother, Gloria, could hear the girls talking and typing furiously late into the night, but she hardly ever saw them. The girls' whole lives at that point were consumed by writing. The Guardian piece states, quote, authorship did not bring the expected results. This plan, like so many of the twins' strategies to break free and make an exciting life for themselves, failed. These 2 girls were full of frustration and the desire for self-expression, struggling to find an identity in a world which, in their words, considered them black and daft. New feelings, longings for sex and love, flooded them, end quote. Strangers, I have another guilt-free gift idea for you. Uncommon Goods takes the stress out of gift giving with thousands of unique, high-quality finds you won't see anywhere else. Uncommon Goods looks for products that are high-quality, unique, and often handmade or made in the U.S. Many are crafted by independent artists and small businesses, making every gift feel meaningful and truly one of a kind. Uncommon Goods offers all kinds of personalized gift ideas, so your loved ones will know you didn't just pick up some random thing at some random store. Seriously, head over to uncommongoods.com/strange and give yourself some time to browse their truly amazing selection of gifts and experiences. Show your loved ones you care by giving them a thoughtful, unique piece from Uncommon Goods. They have everything from clothing to housewares to art and even experiences like cocktail making classes. When you shop at Uncommon Goods, you're supporting artists and small independent businesses. Many of their handcrafted products are made in small batches. So don't wait. Cross those names off your list before the rush. To get 15% off your next gift, go to uncommongoods.com/strange. That's uncommongoods.com/strange for 15% off. Uncommon Goods. We're all out of the ordinary. By now, the adolescent girls were behaving more flamboyantly, donning wigs, swigging from brandy bottles, and apparently wearing binoculars around their necks while hunting for boys to seduce on the army base where they lived. There were 4 American boys who caught the twins' eyes, the Kennedy boys, not their real names. But this is what they are referred to in all media I have seen about them. June and Jennifer are quoted in the Daily Mail saying, quote, "We got obsessed by them, the brothers. They were good looking and they swaggered down the road. We would start spying on them. We couldn't believe it when one turned up at school. We thought we were dreaming. He was a delinquent, but we loved him all the more then because he was an outcast himself," end quote. In the summer of 1981, Jennifer and June started spending quite a bit of time with these brothers, including losing their virginity to the same boy in a church. I assume these were the very boys that the sisters were feuding over when one tried to drown the other. It seems as though this relationship was kind of the beginning of the end for June and Jennifer. The Guardian piece reported that June didn't enjoy sex and quoted from June's diary, quote, "I have no feelings for sex. I think it's mean and cruel. I just lie back and let it happen. I want romance and emotional attachment. Boys, just use my body." Something about their dynamic with the Kennedy boys might have led the girls down a different path than the one they had known up until that point. The New Yorker piece about the Gibbons sisters summarizes their arc up until then like this. Quote, "The tale of the Gibbons girls is one of sibling rivalry that seemed in danger of turning murderous, featuring a baffling childhood pact of silence that propelled them via educational exclusion to become teenage outcasts who responded to dashed literary ambitions and bungled sexual adventures with a life of petty crime that would lead them ultimately to Broadmoor," end quote. Broadmoor, stranger, is a high-security psychiatric hospital or an asylum for the criminally insane. To get in there, you would have to be both criminal and insane, and it seemed like June and Jennifer were already thought to be at least halfway there. Together, the Kennedy boys and the Gibbons girls started experimenting with drugs, alcohol, and committing petty theft together. According to June in the BBC podcast, June, Voice of a Silent Twin, the Kennedy boys, quote, "introduced us to glue sniffing and smoking cigarettes and drinking vodka by the bottle. But we didn't know what to do or how to stop it. Out of control, I think. Always going through my mind what would happen if you hadn't met those American boys," end quote. June and Jennifer found out where on the base the boys lived and would visit, either invited or uninvited, pretty much every day. According to the BBC podcast, the girls would break into the boys' home, eat their food, drink their liquor, and steal small things. Not surprisingly, I guess, the boys eventually saw the girls as an annoyance and just wanted to get rid of them. In the end, the boys returned to the U.S. in November of 1981, but in spite of the loss of their partners in crime, Jennifer and June kept doing crimes anyway. In a piece in the Daily Mail, June said of this time, quote, "I think we reached the point of no return. There was nothing going for us. The brothers were gone. The other local boys didn't like us. The only thing we could resort to was to turn on each other or turn on the town. So we turned on the town. The only thing that could fill out time was petty crime. It was the only thing to give us meaning," end quote. According to the New York Post, after the Kennedy brothers left, the twins went on a rampage over 5 weeks in 1982 and, quote, burned down a tractor dealership which subsequently caused the injury of a fireman. Soon afterward, they were caught vandalizing and trying to set fire to a technical college, end quote. The trial was not ambiguous. June and Jennifer pled guilty to the charge. They'd been caught red-handed, but their pleas to every one of the charges were all whispered. There was only one expert witness called to the stand during the twins' trial. A Dr. Hamilton, in his testimony, asserted that Jennifer had a, quote, psychopathic disorder, subnormality, or severe subnormality of such a nature or degree as to warrant her detention in a hospital for medical treatment. But the time of detention was very difficult to forecast until we have the opportunity for a prolonged assessment. One would certainly envisage it would be for a number of years. He also said June showed suicidal tendencies, end quote. The judge listened to Hamilton and ordered detention at Broadmoor, stipulating that, quote, the order I make must be without limit of time, end quote. Their one-time teacher, Tim Thomas, in spite of his somewhat damning comments about Jennifer in a number of interviews, still disagreed with the diagnosis of psychopathy, saying, quote, how the hell can you decide that somebody has a mental health problem as serious as that if you don't communicate with them? Expediency. Had they been white and middle class, the outcome would have been different, end quote. On June 20th, 1982, Jennifer and June Gibbons both began what became an 11-year sentence for petty theft and arson at Broadmoor. June later summarized her and Jennifer's life at Broadmoor for a piece on thenetline.com. Quote, we got 12 years of hell because we didn't speak. We had to work hard to get out. We went to the doctor. We said, look, they wanted us to talk. We're talking now. He said, you're not getting out. You're going to be here for 30 years. We lost hope, really. End quote. During their indefinite hold at Broadmoor, June and Jennifer were both diagnosed as schizophrenic. While they were incarcerated and presumably being treated for schizophrenia, the girls were medicated in a way that sapped their creative zeal and diminished their interest in writing. But the Gibbons sisters still wrote prolifically in their diaries. Some troubling quotes from June's diary include, quote, sick, mental, psychopathic. Imagine how I felt. Me, a mental psychopath. I only heard about things like that in Alfred Hitchcock, end quote. And, she wants us to be equal. There is a murderous gleam in her eye. Dear Lord, I am scared of her. She is not normal. Someone is driving her insane. It is me, end quote. And, quote, I feel like suicide, but will that help? I have fresh marks on my face to prove how distressing life is becoming with my twin sister. Have I the strength to kill her? End quote. These kinds of quotes abound. It sounds like June was straight up terrified of Jennifer. Another diary entry read, quote, nobody suffers the way I do, not with a sister. With a husband, yes. With a wife, yes. With a child, yes. But this sister of mine, a dark shadow robbing me of sunlight, is my one and only torment, end quote. And one day she'd wake up and be me, and one day I'd wake up and be her, and we'd used to say to each other, give me back myself. If you give me back myself, I'll give you back yourself, end quote. A piece on NPR quoted June's diary as well, quote, we have become fatal enemies in each other's eyes. We feel the irritating, deadly rays coming out of our bodies, stinging each other's skin. I say to myself, can I get rid of my own shadow? Impossible or not possible? Without my shadow, would I die? Without my shadow, would I gain life, be free or left to die? Without my shadow, which I identify with a face of misery, deception, murder, end quote. There is no shortage of insight into the twins by way of their meticulous recording of their own lives in their diaries. But in all of these articles and reports about the twin sisters' sometimes poisonous connection, I saw no quotes from Jennifer's diary about June. Also, as I read the quotes and articles, I found myself wondering why the girls received an indefinite sentence for a case of arson and petty theft. I felt, as I read about the girls imprisoned for over a decade in a psych ward, that it seemed unfairly steep. I wasn't alone in my thinking. According to the twins' older sister Greta in the BBC podcast, quote, "Yes, their behavior was abnormal, but they never killed anyone, so why send them to Broadmoor?" End quote. But then I looked up the sentencing guidelines for arson in the UK in the 1970s and learned that under the Criminal Damage Act 1971, the maximum sentence for arson is life imprisonment. So actually, it would seem the twins were given leniency. They did cause bodily harm, after all, but more interesting, I think, is the question of their confusing and conflicting diagnoses throughout their lives. Initially, the twins were viewed as having a physical or neurological problem to be solved, but over time that morphed into a series of psychiatric issues that are a matter of some debate. Were they or were they not schizophrenic? Was Jennifer a psychopath? Was June suicidal? Some clinicians or people close to the twins in the case argued yes, while others have said no. The actual facts of their diagnoses, though, proved to be somewhat unimportant. The system they spent their lives in really viewed the Gibbons sisters as mentally ill. And when they proved their credible danger to society, they were not treated so much as criminals as they were treated as insane. June and Jennifer served 11 years at Broadmoor. They were finally to be released from the maximum security wing and were going to be transferred to the lower security Caswell Clinic in Wales. The news of their impending release came on March 9, 1993, just 1 month shy of their 30th birthday. But the twins' long partnership in all things was about to end abruptly. Jennifer would never celebrate her 30th birthday and would never experience an independent life outside the walls of a prison, asylum, or hospital again. On the very same day the sisters were informed of the change, Jennifer Gibbons died of acute myocarditis. In an NPR interview, the author of The Silent Twins, Marjorie Wallace, talked about the conversation she had with the girls just days before their transfer to Caswell was to occur. Quote, "Jennifer said, Marjorie, I'm going to have to die." And I sort of laughed. "Why are you going to have to die? You're not ill." And she said, "Because we've decided." End quote. Wallace realized the girls had decided that for one to truly live, the other had to die. The morning of their release, Jennifer laid her head on June's shoulder and slipped into a coma. Doctors declared her dead less than 12 hours later. She passed away due to sudden inflammation of the heart. Investigators never solved Jennifer's bizarre and untimely death. They looked for poison in her system, but found none. Likewise, there was no evidence of suicide or murder, though some reports suggest that she'd stopped eating at some point before. Some doctors suggested that the medication given to the girls at Broadmoor may have flared an allergic response in Jennifer that led to her death. But ultimately, it was decided that Jennifer's death was a freak occurrence. Whatever it was, though, it seems as if Jennifer willed herself to death. June wrote about her sister's death in her diary, saying, quote, "Today, my beloved twin sister Jennifer died. She is dead. Her heart stopped beating. She will never recognize me. Mom and Dad came to see her body. I kissed her stone-colored face. I went hysterical with grief." End quote. June's complicated, fraught relationship with her constant companion of 30 years had come to an end. She had spent her entire life wondering where she ended and Jennifer began, and now her other half was gone for good. The feelings that accompanied Jennifer's death were, I imagine, as complex as the relationship itself, but I am guessing the feeling of relief may have been among them. June was finally released into society a year after her sister's death. She exited the hospital and entered into an independent life. She lives in Wales and goes by her middle name to avoid any remaining stigma of her past or links to her sister, though I am pretty sure that is a bond that can never be permanently severed. Strange and Unexplained will be dark next week. We'll be back on December 4th. This episode was written by Eve Kerrigan and me, Daisy Egan, with research by Keely Hayes. Sound engineering by Jeff Devine. Music by Epidemic and Blue Dot Sessions. If you have an idea for an episode, head to our website, strangeandunexplainedpod.com, and fill out the contact form. I will write back. Grab Bag is an all-female and non-binary owned profit share network where our contributors get to keep ownership of their shows. We strive to give a platform to those who might not be able to land themselves on a bigger network. Who knows? Maybe you have a podcast idea you'd like to pitch to Grab Bag. We've got live recordings, watch parties, book clubs, and more. Why there's so much going on over at Grab Bag, you'll wonder if we missed the memo on how capitalism works. Join me on Instagram at SNUPod, Daisy Egan, and Grab Bag Collab, or head to the Facebook page to join in the conversation. If you like the show, please visit a sponsor with our unique code, give us a quick review and 5 stars, subscribe and download, and tell a friend. Stay strange.